They've scored. It's Grant who's got the goal from the free kick, and we're heading for extra time now, surely.
Flamingo! It is 2-0, and that now surely seals the K-League title for John Buckland Motors.
You're listening to the K-League United podcast, proud partner of Football Nation Radio.
Hello, annyeonghaseyo. Welcome to the K-League United podcast, World Cup edition. I'm your host, Matthew Binns. Korea are out of the 2022 World Cup after falling to Brazil 4-1 in the round of 16. It puts an end to a tournament that has seen the Taegeuk Warriors take significant strides from their last two limp efforts, reigniting a passion in the fan base along the way. We'll be going through the defeat and Korea's tournament as a whole, and joining me in doing so is my regular World Cup co-host, Michael Redmond. Hello, Michael.
Hello, everybody.
And returning for his first podcast in quite a while, it's only Ryan Walters, ladies and gentlemen.
Greetings from Ho Chi Minh.
Greetings indeed. It's been a bit of a tournament. Few early starts as well. But besides Korea's defeat, have you been finding it so far, Ryan? How's the atmosphere down there in Ho Chi Minh for this tournament?
Yeah, I mean, I'm loving the time difference for me because the matches kick off at 10 p.m. and then it's been like the group stage was like 5, 8, 10, and then midnight. It was lovely. Korea kicked off at 2 a.m. here last night, so it was just one of those like stay up, go to bed super late kind of things as opposed to getting up at 4 in the morning. So the time difference has been friendly. I did make my way out to a somewhat American sports pub for the U.S. Loss in the knockout rounds, which, you know, I'm glad we're not here talking about that. It's not like both of the nations that I was cheering for are out, but no, it's been fun here. I'm doing the AFF trophy tour, which is done now. So I've been going out with some folks that love Southeast Asian football and watching the World Cup. It's been really fun.
Yeah, football's not ending with the World Cup. Obviously, the AFF is going to see things out for the year, and well, I'm sure you'll have more to say on that.
Just a bit.
Just a bit. But we won't be talking about that in this particular episode. Michael, though, against Portugal, we saw you take to the streets of Konkuk and doing your best Ronaldo impressions. Same again for this 4 a.m.
Yeah, do you know, like, this is a visual podcast at the moment for those who can't see. I feel like I've got, like, bags just tattooed under my eyes for every 4 a.m. kickoff I've woken up for. I promised myself I'd go to bed at 9 o'clock last night. I ended up watching the Croatia-Japan game all the way to penalties. I forgot what sleep is. I need a day off. I need a day off football now. So it's got to that moment where I'm sick of actually talking about it. So here we are, talking about it.
Well, you'll get a little bit of... Yeah, it's gonna be some good stuff, everyone. But yeah, no, we're gonna get a little bit of a reprise after Spain. As Portugal have been in action in their quarterfinal, in their round of 16 knockouts today at time of recording. You'll have a few days off before England take centre stage once more. But we'll talk a bit about England perhaps later on. For now, though, we're very much talking about Korea because this is a Korean football podcast, and we're going to be doing a number of things. We're going to be going through Korea versus Brazil, and yeah, what that match was. We're going to be looking back at the competition as a whole. Then we're going to talk about the legacy of Paulo Bento, because if you've not read the news, Paulo Bento is not staying on with Korea as Korean manager. We will be talking about his time at the helm and what it means for the future of the Taegeuk Warriors before ending with the footballogy match of the round. And we're going to have to choose one because Korea aren't in it anymore and there's no K-League till March. So get ready for that. But let's just jump straight into it. The match you got up at 4 a.m. for, well, you were already up at 4 a.m. for, Michael, rather. And the one you were out in the streets for, or wherever you were, Ryan. Korea versus Brazil. I'm going to just quickly run us through what happened in this one because, well, it happened so fast and I don't even think I can keep up with the speed these goals went in. But yeah, the big news for Brazil going into this was that Neymar had been deemed fit for proceedings, even if Gabriel Jesus and Alex Telles were no longer options due to injuries they had picked up. Korea, meanwhile, were back with almost a whole squad available. Kim Min-jae returning from injury, Hwang Hee-chan being handed the start after his last-minute heroics against Portugal. However, the major talking point was the return of Lee Kang-in to the bench, despite having featured from the off in Korea's final group match. And yeah, we had a goal within 7 minutes, and it will shock you to know that it was Brazil that scored very early on. A slower start would have been desirable for Paulo Bento's men, but they were robbed of that option within just 7 minutes as Brazil carved open the back line to take the lead. Rafinha found space down Korea's right-hand side before sending a low ball across the box to an unmarked Vinicius Jr. to convert. 7 minutes later, and it was 2. A clumsy foul from Jung Woo-young on the edge of the area saw Richarlison go down. The penalty coolly converted by Neymar. Did take an awful long run up at it, though.
Can I hop in there for a second? Was that a pen? Was that a pen?
I don't think so.
I don't think it was.
It was very, very soft.
I don't think it was.
Very, very soft.
How are we not going to VAR for that? I mean, look, VAR at this tournament has been getting people onside or offside based on their fingernails, and we're not even going to take a look at that one. I mean, I don't know that I don't think it would have made a difference in the end anyway, but I just, that one for me, not a pen. We should have at least taken a look.
Michael?
Yeah, just looking at the replay, like it looked as if like he was clearly not looking to foul at all. He's looking, Jung Woo-young, he was looking just to literally clear the ball. He's looking to clear the ball, and they called it. And as you said, there wasn't even a VAR decision for that. So it was a bit strange that went straight away. Okay, penalty Brazil. But as you said, it wouldn't really have made a difference. But it would have been nice to have took a look at it, the referee to take a look at it.
True.
That's all I'm saying.
It should, yeah. Well, it should have. Every other decision's had a VAR look at it. I mean, there wasn't much protest in my opinion, really, from the player. But fair enough. We'll keep going on. Yeah. So 2-0. Neymar doubling his size lead, and Brazil. Well, before Brazil scored their third, we should say Hwang Hee-chan did have a shot. He came close to pulling one back about the quarter-hour mark. He broke through got just to the edge of the area and took a bit of a long-range shot, stunned the palms of Alisson, but remained 2-0 to Brazil. Then, yeah, Brazil made it 3. They maintained their composure, slotting away the third on the half-hour mark. Richarlison, he controlled it like several times with his head. I'm doing this for the people who can see. Obviously, the people who are listening can just imagine that my head is facing upwards.
I thought you were doing the goal celebration.
Yeah, well, I'm not that good at dancing, unfortunately. But Richarlison, he controlled it several times with the head, keeping out of range from Hwang In-bom before some neat footwork passed it out to. He passed it across to Rafinha, and then Rafinha passed it across to Thiago Silva. Richarlison just started through the middle of them, then through the middle of the Korea defence. Silva just slotted it coolly first time, straight into Richarlison's path. He just slotted away, easy as it comes, really. Yeah. And any hopes that Korea could, any slim hopes rather, of Korea trying to regroup at half time and mount somewhat of a comeback were dashed. As Lucas Paqueta then made it 4, about 37-minute marks. Korea did get a better in the second half. They won the second half, if you like. There's some nice passages of play. Perhaps the other team had slowed down somewhat, though, being 4-0 up and all. Korea did get on the score sheet, though. Paek Sung-ho coming off the bench and rifling one home from range, making it Alisson's first goal conceded at this tournament. But yeah, far too little too late, really, for Korea in this one. And yeah, that was the game in a nutshell. Whew. Ryan, your thoughts on this one?
On this game, I've so many thoughts because I haven't been able to vent about my World Cup thoughts so far, so I'll hold those for a second. But I think on this one, I think the occasion got to him. You couldn't have had a worse start than Korea had in this one. And I said, screamed this to myself last night as I was watching this. Every single defender is ball watching on that first goal. Every single one of them is just fixated on the ball. Nobody's got their head on a swivel at all. Everybody's just nervous as can be. And I think that sank them within 15 minutes, right? Again, I don't think that is a penalty, but I think you put yourself in a position for it to be called, and a lot of times, especially now, it will be called because, again, the assumption is that it'll go to VAR and you can figure out if it was or wasn't a penalty. Hate all of that, but that is the assumption from the referee side of things. And I think that you could just see that the Korean players were just rattled. I mean, first time out of the group in 12 years, and then your reward for that is facing not just Brazil, but a very good version of Brazil. And I think you could just see it on their faces. And I think you could see it in the way that they were playing in the opening 10, 15 minutes. And we do have to also add, and you already added a little bit of this in there in the rundown, without Allison, I don't know that this game is as lopsided as it looks on paper, because he made some outstanding saves in this one. And against the guys that you would expect to be up there for Korea, against Son, against Hwang, and against Cho Kyu-sung. And yeah, I think for me, he's leading the way for the Golden Glove. And if he's not between the sticks, who knows? Who knows? You know, if that penalty's not given and he's not in there and we can keep doing all these hypotheticals, then maybe Korea wins. Or, I mean, they could at least have made a game out of it. But hats off to him, because I thought he had a great game. And yeah, Brazil just didn't have anything to be nervous about, and they weren't, and Korea was.
Yeah, they've been kind of slow starters a bit, Korea, in a couple of these matches. They obviously went down early against Portugal as well, and fell quickly behind to Ghana, despite some dominance early on. Perhaps, you know, somewhere deep down, they probably wouldn't have panicked if they managed to hold on to just that 1-0 deficit. They probably could have rallied, because we've seen them rally in this competition. We've seen them regroup, refine their feet. But it was that second goal so quick after the first one. I think it kind of killed any kind of momentum. And yeah, Michael, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, with this one, I want to try and take a positive spin on it. Obviously, they were left shocked in the first 45 minutes. But I thought they managed to control the ship in the second half, really. And obviously, Park Sung-ho's goal was a wonderful goal, to be honest. But as I said, the game was really kind of already done for them. Just looking slightly at the possession, like Brazil was 53% and Korea's 47%. Now, we spoke about it and we touched on Brazil on Saturday on the podcast. Brazil aside was like to pass the ball and try and attack at all costs. So for Korea to almost match them on possession wise, and even the passing, it was like, I think it was almost 550 passes for Brazil, and Korea were just about tipping 500. Now I think it's one of the highest against Brazil so far in the competition. So there were points where Korea were passing and moving the ball, even though the odds were against them. They got back into it in the second half as such, but obviously being 4-0 down, the game was done in the first 45.
It's a good point, that, and kind of ties into what I thought. I didn't know whether they were a little bit naive to think they could go toe-to-toe with Brazil in the way they have been playing, but that's part of the Bento concept. You know, this team is bought into a playing style, and the variations of it are only minor. And yeah, it would be good perhaps if they'd started more defensively and just held off Brazil for those opening moments. But then doing so would probably almost be a disservice to the attacking way we've seen them play in this tournament, the way they've been applauded for by neutrals watching them. So yeah, a bit of a difficult one, bit of a sad one really for Korea. But I feel that they could probably finish the tournament with their heads held high. But let's move on to the tournament. Let's talk about why or why not we could consider this a good competition, a good tournament for Korea. And Ryan, I'll let you start us off on this one. Korea's tournament as a whole, what went well for you?
Sure. I will say that I'm in charge of questions tonight, so I'm excited to be back and in charge of questions. We did get a good one in about which players we see moving forward, and that was from Joe on Facebook, and we will be getting to that in just a little bit. This tournament as a whole, yes, let's focus on the positives. Let us start there. I think what went well here is, I'm going to go existential with this one, hope. I think that when we talk about Korean football, and all of us have been in this for a really long time, and when I was doing just going to drop this name in there, when I was doing the FIFA documentary last year, talking to people about the World Cup and the legacy of 2002, that was still with us 20 years later. And yes, they made it out of the group in 10. And yes, they beat Germany last year. But not last year, last tournament. None of that really felt the same as this. This felt like a group of players pulling together and kind of reigniting passion for football in a way that it hasn't been there before, and giving hope and giving that belief to young kids now that are there, that are hopefully in academy systems or just interested in the game. And they see these guys go out there on the biggest stage and they see them not back down against the likes of Portugal and get the win that they need. And so for me, I think this tournament, legacy wise, will be viewed as a success, because again, if you're going to go out of a tournament and you go out against a very good Brazil, there are worse ways to exit a World Cup, and a lot of teams have exited a World Cup this way. And so I think if you would have told me beforehand that they would get out of that group and that they would then lose to Brazil, I would take that, because I think that that's still a pretty good tournament. And again, I think that there's a belief in this group of players at a really important time, because that next World Cup cycle starts now. And I think if things are done well, that could be a really, really good World Cup for Korea. And there's a lot of hope for this program right now.
Indeed, and we'll be touching more on the legacy a little bit later on there. But yes, this World Cup could very much be a starting point, a platform for greater things to come, really, for Korea. Michael, your thoughts on this competition, this edition of the World Cup? What went well for Korea for you?
For me, obviously, it's kind of what Ryan touched on as well. We looked at this tournament and we looked at the teams, Uruguay, Ghana, then Portugal. Not many people gave Korea a chance to go down that tournament. I've watched countless interviews, I've watched videos on YouTube where they don't even talk about Korea. Never mind saying they're going to get out of the group. So for them to go and put up what I thought was a great performance against Uruguay, okay, it was a stalemate 0-0, but it was the first game of the tournament. World champions have lost the first games of the tournament. To do that and then to play so well against Ghana, but then drop the ball on 3 separate occasions and to lose on that one, that was a bit of a pill to swallow, because they played very well in some points during that game. To then go and beat Portugal, it was kind of like a tournament where no one thought they would get out of the group, and here they are out of the group. And as Matt was singing before the podcast about dreamers, it kind of gives the hope that Korea were dreamers in the competition, and anything was possible. I'm so sorry, that's for the Aguero thing you did on Saturday for me.
Oh no, fair play.
I was wondering when this happened. I was like, wait, was I not here for this?
You were fixing your lighting. Took everybody under the bus. My scarf was falling down.
But what I think happened is they had great spells throughout all 3 games, and I think it was kind of like a testament where this time around I had more people talking about Korea as a team rather than, oh, did you see us beat Germany? Oh, did you see that 2-0 result against Germany? They talk more, oh, look at us as a team, look at us as a nation, and that was really nice couple of weeks we've had here. I think you can quote check me on this. In 2018, Korea went out because they beat Germany, but Mexico went through because Korea beat Germany. Am I right in saying that?
No, not kind of. Yeah, they had to beat Germany 2-0, but they needed Mexico to get a result against Sweden, and Mexico didn't get a result against Sweden, but because Korea done the business against Germany, Mexico went through.
I always remember looking at that and thinking, oh, do you know what? For Korea, it'll come full circle the next one. And Ghana and Uruguay ended 2-0 to Uruguay, obviously, but I feel like Ghana kind of did their bit to get Korea through to second place in that group. So give a tip off the hat to Ghana as well there.
Is there bad blood between Ghanaian football fans and Luis Suarez or something? Is there something to that?
No, not to my knowledge, no. Oh. They've kept it quiet.
Guess I'll have to look that up.
Yeah. Well, something Michael did touch on there, and I kind of noted it there. You said they don't talk about Korea in when you look at these previews from non-Asian centric news outlets, so the European outlets and the American outlets. They tend to focus on the European contenders, and understandably so. That's where they are based, but in it's a global game. More research can be done in this day and age, especially. But I'm taking it a little bit extended on that there. Whenever they did talk about Korea, it was always about one man. It was always about Son Heung-min. Every preview was, and I'm sure we've been guilty as well in the past with some of our previews when we're like, we've got to preview this, we'll preview the best player. But they always preview Son Heung-min as the player to watch. And going into this World Cup, his injury was kind of really unknown, how the extent, the damage that had been done, and he was recovering. And I think what went well in this World Cup is, yes, Son Heung-min had his moment. He had that moment against Portugal where he just ran with it up the pitch and laid off that assist to Hwang Hee-chan. And it was one of the greatest moments in his career, ultimately. But around that, apart from that, yes, he was still Son Heung-min at times, but he wasn't the Son Heung-min we've become used to seeing at Tottenham. And it was good to see so many other players step up. It was good to see as well other people here recognise that there isn't just Son Heung-min in this team. Mm-hmm. The number of times where I've had conversation with people here in Korea and their first go-to is, it's almost become terrible, but do you know Son Heung-min? And I'm like, yeah, but I could name you the other I could name you the other players in the squad as well. Try me, and it's good now that there's these other names that people know. Now, everybody already knew Lee Kang-in. They were calling out for him in the friendlies, and it's great that we finally got to see him come in and see what he can do. He looks an absolute natural at this stage. It's good that Hwang Hee-chan, he's had some poor form at Wolves this season, but he's come in and he's put his name permanently into the history books. We've got like Cho Kyu-sung, somebody many people outside of K-League didn't know. They certainly do now. Not all for footballing reasons, sadly, but he has got a good stake on football reasons as well. He is Korea's de facto striker now. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think that's what worked well for me, that we can say that the baton is now being passed on. There's evidence that the baton is being passed on to these other players, and people are noticing these other players outside of footballing circles, outside of Korean footballing circles, we should say, as well. So yeah, that was what went well for me. But what didn't, well, I'll continue with this. While people now know the names of some of Korea's best talents, they also know the names of a couple of players at fullback, and I think they took an unfair amount of flack. And that's not just the John Book fan in me speaking. Kim Jin-soo and Kim Min-hwan at fullback, they were exposed several times.
Where do they play? Where do they play their club football, Matthew?
Yeah, I know. Well, the same place where Cho Kyu-sung plays his football. But yeah, I think Kim Jin-soo took an unusual amount of flack for this. I mean, even I guess I did criticize him as well, saying why didn't he convert those chances? But he is a defender. But he also took a lot of criticism for his defensive mistakes. And I don't know whether that's the system that Paulo Bento plays has also helped to expose that. But also there is just a lack of fullbacks for Korea. And I think this tournament's proved it. Kim Jin-soo and Kim Min-hwan, they're not bad fullbacks by any means, but I think people have jumped on them as scapegoats in certain instances. And it's kind of highlighted an area that Korea needs to look at going forward. They really need to bring through players. I mean, Kim Min-hwan is a young right back. He's still got lots of potential ahead of him. But yeah, that's for me what didn't work. Michael, what didn't work for you?
Oh, sorry, Michael. Do you mind if I hop in on the fullbacks bit real quick?
Yeah, of course you may, yeah.
I think this is an area where K-League needs to adapt. I think K-League for far too long has been playing too conservatively in defense, and a modern fullback is going to be getting up and down the pitch, like Kim Jin-soo does in K-League. I don't think that's a fault in his game. But like you're saying, Matthew, I think this is, when we're looking at the development side of things, I think K-League teams need to change the way that they're playing the game, the way that they're approaching matches defensively, and how they're using wing play, because there aren't enough fullbacks that can play as a wing back as well in this kind of system. I mean, who knows what kind of system we're going to have moving forward. It won't be Paulo Bento, as we know that. But I do think that the back four, or a lot of times a back five, with with wingbacks and fullbacks that just don't get up and down the pitch the way that we need them to. I think that that's an area that does need to be addressed. And maybe that's where some of the frustration is coming from, because I agree with you. Kim Jin-soo didn't have a good tournament, but I don't think he was the worst. And one of the things that I'll get into eventually is squad rotation. And I don't know why we don't see Hong Chol get a little bit more of a go here, for example, but I'm over my time.
Before you delve into that, I would just like to build on that, because it's something I was thinking as well in terms of legacy. How much is the previous national teams we've seen that have been led by K-League formations, and how many K-League formations have been led by the Korean team's selection? This is where we've had the last 4 years. We've had a Korea team playing in a particular way, but K-League has kind of stayed where it is. Are we going to see more K-League teams now knowing the way the national team wants to play, knowing what the public want, knowing what the public want from their national side? And will we see K-League teams adopt this? And will we start to see fullbacks come through as wingbacks at K-League level to meet different tactics? Because K-League for too long has become stale in its tactics. So, perhaps a legacy from this World Cup will be it might rub off on some K-League teams to try and play a similar sort of tactic. And in doing so, we might see some of these players coming through molded into the system that was tried to be installed here. So, looking for silver linings there and everything. Michael, I'll get. You've been waiting patiently there.
Sorry.
Tell us what you didn't enjoy.
Well, for me, it's not the actual footballing side. For me, it was the what if factor at times. Obviously, before the tournament, what if is Son Heung-min going to be fit? Is he not going to be fit? Obviously, with the not fitness, obviously with the injury he occurred. We didn't really have Kim Min-jae to his full fitness at the last 2-3 games. We only saw Hwang Hee-chan come on against Portugal and come on for at Brazil. These are areas where it's what if Korea had a fully fit? That wasn't a talking point going into this competition. But for me, it kind of left a lot of question marks in a lot of fans' eyes. Kim Min-jae was 100% fit all games. Could it have been a different one against Ghana, for instance? Could it have been a different one against Brazil? Could it have been a lot closer game? Obviously, Hwang Hee-chan, once again, could that game been ended 3-3 or 4-3 against Ghana? Could we have got a goal in Uruguay? The next, they could have ended first in the group, and we wouldn't be talking about Korea versus Brazil right now. I think a few injuries, they didn't plague the team, but it kind of slightly psychologically held them back a little bit.
Yeah, very good point. And yeah, we're talking about Korea finishing first when before this one we were talking about them qualifying at all. But imagine if they had managed to slip into first in this group and then have an extra day of rest ahead of the round of 16. But yeah, a lot of what ifs, but very, very good points to be made. And Ryan, what was it for you?
I'm going to go, I feel like I'm going existential big picture on a couple of things here. One of the things that I just wanted to touch on, just because this came up for me in the Twitter sphere last night, and it's been every single match. So if there's any commentator or anybody involved at all listening right now, learn how to pronounce Korean names. For crying out loud. It's a World Cup. It's a World Cup. It's not Kim Min-jae. That's not a Korean name. Nobody's named Min-jae. It's not Chu Gui-sung. You just put in a little bit of research beforehand. And I'm not always watching. I'll say I watch whatever stream is provided for me, because that means that I'm somewhere where somebody's watching it. But I've listened to BBC, I've listened to TSN, I've listened to Fox. I've heard the English commentators in multiple channels, and it's just disrespectful. It's just disrespectful to Asian football in general to not know these players' names when you're not tripping over anybody on Poland, for example. Everybody can pronounce those names just fine. So for me, that was one of the things that, especially a World Cup held in Asia, it's in Qatar, just put a little bit of effort in. So that's something that's been clearly bothering me a lot on a grander scale. So thank you for letting me go into that. On a Korean side of things.
Quickly checking my notes for some pronunciations. Pronunciations coming up later. Hang on.
I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect, but I'm not paid to be a commentator of a World Cup match where I keep saying Kim Min-jae over and over again. And he's not an unknown quantity. And it's not Son Heung-min either. Like it's just grating.
Yeah, you would have thought they would have figured those two out by now, surely. But
people may have heard of this Son Heung-min. Like I just don't understand. Anyway, speaking of Sonny, I think this changed throughout the tournament, but I think there was still a ton of reliance on him in those early games. And I think Hwang Hee-chan getting that winner with Son playing him through, I think to me was the moment that this kind of really broke. But I think there were still a lot of moments where it goes both ways, where the team kind of gets the ball to him and they're like, okay, work your magic. And they just kind of stand and watch in a lot of ways. And there are moments where he just puts his head down and tries to do it all on his own. And these things are feeding each other. And I do think, and again, we'll talk about legacy, I do see that finally changing. But that is something that I saw in the group stage, especially that, hopefully we can move further away from that. It does feel like we are moving further away from that. So hopefully that trend continues.
Okay, well, we are going to have a quick break in a minute. But before we do, let's just quickly name the player of the competition for Korea in your eyes. Okay, so Ryan, I'll let you lead on this one. You just finished, but continue. Who? It's not Solomon, by the sounds of it. So, who's taking your fancy at this?
I mean, I think we've already talked about him. I have a different name written down, but I'm going against my notes. It's got to be Lee Kang-in. I mean, this kid just continues to perform whenever he's given an opportunity, and whenever he's given an opportunity is something we'll talk about in the next segment. But I think that he impressed. I think that he continues to not be overawed by the situations that he's put into. He's still quite young. He's still, to me, he might be the player that this team needs to be built around. And I think that he showed that he did have 4 appearances, but in kind of limited minutes in this tournament. So I think he's the guy for me in this one.
And Michael?
I was reiterating of Lee Kang-in as well, especially the fact that the Ghana game, when he comes in, within like 2 minutes, he's already assisted a goal. But obviously, I feel like I'm talking about Hwang Hee-chan a lot today. I want to give a bit of props to him for literally being unfit, being injured, to come back to score that goal in the Portugal game. And he was actually having a good game-ish against Brazil. He had like 4 shots on target, and he was like one of the highest passes for Korea in the game. He was trying to get Korea back into the game at all costs. And for me, it was a kind of a valiant effort from him. So I think, once again, what if he was there available from the first game, what could have happened with Hwang Hee-chan? So, that's who I'll go for with this one.
All right. Well, I'll reiterate Lee Kang-in, but I'm not going to choose him. I'm going to choose the man of the moment, Cho Kyu-sung, not because of his newfound internet stardom, but for footballing reasons. This competition has cemented him as Korea's striker. Now, it was Hwang Hee-jo, understandably, going into this competition. Hwang Hee-jo has been trusted under Bento. Hwang Hee-jo has scored a lot of goals under Bento. But Hwang Hee-jo is also not in form. And he showed that against Uruguay. And we said before this competition, if he doesn't perform, there's Cho Kyu-sung there waiting in the wing, and Cho Kyu-sung, he's blown hot and cold in matches. He's had a couple of games where he's had a couple of moments where he perhaps hasn't been able to have the effect he wants. But those 2 goals against Ghana, and both excellent headers, by the way, and the chances, he had the chance yesterday against Brazil, created chances against Portugal. He looks like the new striker. Do I think he's the best striker that Korea's had? No, I think they desperately still need to find another good striking option. Oh Hyung-gyu might be the future there. He looks, he was called up as a backup for this competition. Clearly, he's a player that the Bento had his eyes on, and perhaps the people who will be taking over after Bento probably have also got notes on him. Korea do need to find better striking options, but for now, Cho Kyu-sung, he was asked to step up in lieu of Hwang Hee-jo, who was not in form, and he did it, and he did it well, and he's probably earned himself a move to Europe in the off season, if rumours are to believe. So, well done him. We are going to have a break, but before we do, there is a quick question that it makes sense really to answer now, and that one was from Mike Baston. It was asking about, well, I'm fighting with the mailbag producer here. The mailbag producer's been clicking buttons.
Nope, I'm not.
Right. How do you compare Korea's tournament to Japan's? Oof. Well,
I mean, I feel like this is inevitable, right? This is always going to be
it is inevitable, yeah. And I would say Japan has had a better one. But I'd also say Japan was perhaps the better team going into this competition as well, proven with the games where they played against Korea and humiliated Korea, or a few times. And Japan have got more players playing in Europe regularly. I'd say maybe I like I'm saying these facts off the top of my head. It feels like it, and I think they just seemed a better team going into this competition, and that's shown by the performances. You know, you got a win against Spain, a win against Germany, and you took you took Croatia, you know, the last World Cup's finalist, to extra time, to penalties. Japan, hands down. But how about yourselves, Ryan? Japan or Korea?
I think for me, look, it's Japan. I mean, I know that's illegal for us to say on this podcast, and especially as I'm wearing a shirt with Hangul on it. But it's one of those things to me, and Dan Orlowitz pointed this out online. This is a direct result of 30 years of development and getting clubs unified from the top to the bottom of the J League pyramid and playing attractive football. There's a pipeline for Japanese players to get over to Europe. You know, last night, Maeda scores, and Yokohama is putting out a GIF that they have of him from when he was there. So it's not necessarily the same as like players are only developed in Europe or they're only developed in Japan. To me, that willingness to work with the outside world and to play a version of the game that is much more attractive to other clubs, you put your players in a shop window in a way that just isn't being done in K-League right now, where you can have somebody that's as talented as Cho Gyu-sung who needs to bust out in a World Cup in order to get the recognition that he really should have had based on his K-League form. You know, I mean, that was one of the things in this tournament. So many folks are talking about, and it was the same thing in 2018, you know, who's Jo Yeon-woo? Who's Cho Gyu-sung? Who are these guys? Where did they come from? Well, they've been shining in K-League. It's just that K-League doesn't put itself in the shop window in the same way that J-League does. And so I think that this, in a lot of ways, and yeah, of course, I'm going to bring it back down to club level within Asian football. But to me, I think that this is also showing where J-League is compared to K-League now. And I think that was different at the last World Cup. I think that was different 4 years ago. And I think that development of players, of coaches, and that pipeline is there. And so for me, this is just going to further cement that. The whole world watched Japan almost take down 3 European nations in a World Cup. J-League is going to seem really attractive to players now, you know? And while Korea did have a very good tournament, I don't think it's going to reach that same level internationally when it comes to people maybe wanting to come play in Korea or taking a chance on Korean players. I hope I'm wrong, especially about the latter, but I do think that this was, unfortunately, was a better tournament for Japan.
Michael, anything to add to that?
Nah, I'll be in Korea's corner on this one, okay? The history books will have Korea and Japan both exit the tournament in the same round.
Yep, there we go. Korea, Japan, and America.
Why?
I just think from the last tournament of not getting out to what they had to deal with in this one. Okay, Japan beat Germany, Japan beat Spain. They took Croatia to penalties. As Ryan mentioned, the structure that Japan has as a team and as a league system as well, they've built into that. So looking from like an underdog story as such as Korea, who don't have the same structures such as Japan now. I'm just going to say, do you know what? Well done, Korea, on that one. But then it does raise an interesting point. If you put Japan here and Korea slightly below them, what's going to happen in 4 years? Is that gap going to get bigger and bigger and bigger? Or are Korea going to now have to look in the next 4 years and go, how do we close this gap? How do we sort grassroots out, and especially the K-League, and then start to build a footballing nation once again?
Excellent point. Excellent point indeed. And yeah, great question. Thank you, Mike Baston, for that question. We should have a break because we've reached the 40-minute mark and I am gasping. So we'll be right back after this.
FNR is a revolutionary football-dedicated digital platform, the first of its kind in Australia. It provides a 24/7 live online radio platform experience, podcast hub, and acts as a content provider for TV, radio and digital. Having reached millions of listeners and football fans since launching, FNR is accessible worldwide via its website or app, providing a platform to discuss, debate and celebrate the world game. We are your voice of football, FNR Football Nation Radio.
Welcome back to the K-League United podcast. Matthew Binns here, and I'm joined by Ryan Walters and Michael Redmond. Before the break, we talked about Korea's defeat to Brazil. Then we talked about Korea's World Cup as a whole. Before then, putting all our jobs in jeopardy by praising the J-League. So we're going to quickly.
I didn't.
Michael didn't. Michael didn't.
Michael didn't. He put up a very good argument, but we're going to quickly press on because coming out of the news today, Paulo Bento has stepped down as Korea manager. It seems like the decision was in the works for a while. He seems like he said himself the decision had been made in September, although there had been talk of whether he was going to renew right up until recently. But yeah, Paulo Bento has stepped down after taking control of the Taegeuk Warriors back after the 2018 World Cup. And he won 35 of his 57 matches in charge, making him finish his tenure with a 61% win rate. What's he done well, though? That's what we're going to look at now, everyone. So, Ryan, looking back on Paulo Bento's time, have you rated him as a manager?
I mean, today's an interesting day to answer that question. I think he had made sure things didn't go downhill after Shin Tae-young. We're doing what he did well. I was going to go into what he didn't do well. So, he wore a tracksuit really well.
Oof.
He wore a tracksuit really well.
I think I've started with the wrong person here. Wow. I feel that. Well, we're going to be coming to what you think in a bit then, Ryan. You hold that thought. Thought and keep imagining him in his well-worn tracksuit. Michael, save us from Ryan's negativity on Paulo Bento. No, I'm joking. But
it's all the J-League vibes. I can't help it.
J-League vibes, yeah. No, Michael, save us again, please. Paulo Bento.
J-League United. I feel like I've spoiled the apple cart here.
Oh, don't tell J-Talk podcast, I'll be honest.
I just, to be honest, you're given the side belief again for me. And the supporters, obviously, we've only recently in the last year had fans go back into the stadium. They were looking forward again to going back to go and watching Korea play. And I want to say that was slightly because of Bento style of football. Once again, I was struggling to get tickets to go to national team games because people want to go and watch Korea play. Some other points I want to say. He's beat Iran in the qualifiers. It's the first time they've done so since 2016 when they beat them 2-0 this year. And also they managed to score in 17 of the last 20 games they played. And one of those games that they didn't score in was the 0-0 against Uruguay in the World Cup. So goals did come under him. You can't refuse that didn't happen. So goals did come in the Korea side when under his skill and his management.
Yeah, I think that kind of ties into what I thought went well with him. He actually has an identity for this team. Now, whether you agree with the way he likes to play football or disagree, what we can say is he has a set vision for this team, a concept, he called it. It's that concept that has seen Korea score those goals, like you mentioned. It has seen him get that win rate, but it's also a concept that has seen him leave out the likes of Lee Sung-woo and other talented individuals who he feels do not fit his vision. But I think when you look back to the previous managers and how they So sorry,
What?
producer in the air,
What?
producer in the air. Yeah, when you look back
me
to
cook.
how you only have to go back to Shin Tae-yong and how everything he was doing was almost reactive. It was almost like he knew Korea weren't good enough, and everything was Korea was an underdog. Korea should just feel lucky to be at the World Cup almost. With Paulo Bento, they did have a vision. They did have something they wanted to achieve. He did have his set ways. So sure, sometimes it amounted into one too many passes. Sometimes I just want them to stick the foot through it and kick it at the goal. And yeah, you mentioned all those goals there that they've scored, but I also feel like there should have been waves more. I feel like I've watched Korea so long under Bento at times, and I'm thinking, where is the goal? Like, even though they are there on paper, but I think though, having that stability, it's allowed for something to build, and the football has been quite attractive at times. It's sure, it can get a bit stale when nothing's actually happening, but compared to what it was under the previous two managers, he's put that stability in place, and I am very sure it's because of him that Korea are in the round of 16. I don't think that's down to luck per se. But Ryan, I can see you've got something there that you are not keen on Paulo Bento. So I just want you to kind of tell us what aggravates you about him. Ryan, what is it? Is it that?
It's his face. No, well put together, man. Like I said, he wears a tracksuit well. To me, there was a step forward, but there could have been a leap forward. I think that there's so much talent on this team. There's so much attacking talent on this team. And this is a Korean side that has qualified for 10 consecutive World Cups, and they don't play like it. They don't play like they're a giant within the Asian game, which they are. They're one of the most consistent sides in the world when it comes to qualifying for this tournament. And yet I just don't see enough aggressive tactics. I don't see enough of wanting to take the game to the opposition. And I mean, I'm talking about within qualifying, I'm talking about in the Asian Cup. And I mean, this is another thing. He took charge of the team very shortly before the Asian Cup in 2019, but that was a very disappointing tournament with a pretty talented squad. And at no point has there ever been this call to restructure things, whether it's tactically or whether it's with squad selection. And I think that it's just this is the way it's been done. This is the way we're going to keep doing it in a lot of ways, which, hey, surprise, surprise. I know all of us are shocked by that in a lot of ways, but I think to compare it to the US, obviously the US failed. We failed. We didn't make the World Cup in 2018. And so there's this natural point of breaking everything down. And then this year, we brought the youngest team to the World Cup, and they got out of a very tough group. And I think that wouldn't necessarily have worked for Korea. And also Korea has far more talented veterans right now. So it's not a like for like. But I do think that there are a lot of young players. There are a lot of talented players, a lot of talented attacking players that haven't had enough of a look in. How do you not bring Lee Sung-woo to the EAFF championship this year, for example? The dude's tearing K-League apart, and you don't want to give him a look in a non-FIFA regulated tournament in the middle of summer when the league's on the break. Why? Why does Lee Kang-in have to fight his way into this team when he's proven almost everywhere he's gone that he can just ball at a completely different level, and he can't break into Bento's squad? There's just this stubborn nature of just keeping things the way that they are and his way. And yeah, of course, managers have egos as well, and that's always going to be a thing. But I think it wasn't a lost generation or anything like that. Luckily, it wasn't that bad. But I do think Lee Kang-in should have had more time with the national team before this. Why not take a punt and bring Lee Sung-woo to this tournament? He's in form. It's, again, to me, other than squad selection and tactics, it wasn't that bad.
Michael, anything to add to Ryan's arguments there?
Well, I don't really know if I could add anything to that, to be honest. But I would just say, just to reiterate, it did take him some time to bring a few fan favourites into the squad. I remember the warm-up game against Cameroon in the Seoul World Cup Stadium. They were just chanting Lee Kang-in for like 90 minutes, and he should have brought him on. He should have started. And this time, that's not the isolated occasion. There's been times of other players where it's like the internet's talking, the fans in the stadium are talking, and nothing changed. So maybe you're the manager, you made the decisions, but maybe if everybody in the room is saying the same thing, maybe lend an ear and listen to them.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I think for me, the Lee Sung-woo incident, the refusal to try Lee Sung-woo really grated. I think you mentioned it there, the EAFF. I saw no reason why he couldn't have been included in that. I understood actually why he wasn't included in the final friendlies, because it's far too late then. You can't really be messing with the squad. And I was kind of happy at that point that he's like, right, well, he's not going to do any last-minute rolls of the dice. He's not going to chuck Kim Shin-wook in there. And, well, it would be in the quarterfinals now.
What a different
story. Yeah.
We're talking about a different game had he done that.
But yeah, he's not gonna roll. You know, like Lee Sung-woo was a roll of the dice in 2018 for Shin Tae-yong, and it didn't work out. Paulo Bento didn't do that. He didn't take those risks on the lead up to the tournament, which was the right move. But when you think about how many games back he had this year alone, in terms of friendlies and in terms of that EAFF competition, which was just clubs based in Asia. It was just K-League, J-League, and CSL clubs. Try him. Why not try him just against one of those teams, just to see if he could fit into the system? Sure, he might not fit into the system you want to play, but there's nothing to say that he can't adapt. And I felt that he wouldn't even offer Lee Sung-woo that option to adapt to his system. And I think that was an opportunity missed, really, by Paulo Bento. But building on his legacy for good and for bad, how can you see Korea's future going now that he's departed? Ryan, we'll go to you first.
Coming back to me, I'm not going to come in as hot on this one, I promise. I think, like I said, he didn't sink the ship. I do think that the program, I think Korea's coming out of this tournament in a better place than they were after Russia. So, I think a lot of that's down to youth development and the talent there. And I think that, again, like we were saying, this is a tournament that I feel as a footballing nation, Korea is coming out of this with hope, with the belief that they belong here. And to me, I think the legacy needs to be taking that next step of becoming the true giant of Asian football that they are, and getting up there with Iran, getting up there with Japan, getting up there with these teams that are globally respected. And Korea is globally respected, as they should be. Again, 10 straight World Cups. So to me, I think that the foundation is still there. And I think that the foundation of success is still there. It's just a matter of how to achieve that success and what that success within Asia can mean on the global stage. And I think that it's a very prime time right now to get in a manager that sees that opportunity and sees the young talent that's available right now. And there's a ton of young talent available right now, and brings them in. And I think 2026 could be a very, very special tournament for the Taeguk Warriors. I really do. So I think the opportunity is there. And I think that, yeah, again, Bento did a lot of that. So credit to him there.
Michael, do you want to build on that? Anything else you see from Paulo Bento's legacy?
So to be honest, as Ryan said about 2026, I just want to run off, obviously, two biggest players Korea, everyone talking about them on it at the minute, Son and Kim Min-jae. Son Heung-min's going to be 34 in that tournament, and Kim Min-jae is going to be around about 30, which, it's respectable for a defender to be 30, but Son Heung-min's going to be 34 years old. He's going to be coming towards the end of his national team career. But that Korea setup at the moment, that Korean team, they have players from mid-20 downwards who already have a lot of caps under their name. 2026 needs to be a tournament where they start to shine, because they're going to be not the peak of their career. They could still be going up that mountain, but they had World Cup experience. They've been playing in the national team for at least more than 4 years now. So it's interesting what is built upon the youth players now. Well, not the youth players, the mid-20 players going forward.
Indeed. Yeah, sorry, I phased out for a second. Then when you said Kim Min Jae is going to be 30 at the next tournament, and I just felt. I felt old. I remember him starting for John Buck in 2017 in that Civil Stadium. But yeah, no, you are right. That's a very good point there. Players, I mean, there are a lot of young players coming through who will be in their peak ages, so it's going to be interesting, really, how they will fare at the next World Cup. I think for me, Korea's become a braver team under Bento. And, sure, there have been matches that have proved to the contrary during his tenure, but the 4 years he's been in charge, he's rebuilt them from a team who felt lucky to be at the World Cup, as I said earlier, to one that people are taking notice of again. And the next manager, whoever comes in, needs to continue this forward focus now. Even if the tactics change slightly, Korea are more fun when they're going forward. Most teams are. And the talent coming through, it'll hopefully lend itself to this when developing at youth levels, like I mentioned earlier with the fullbacks as well. If we've got a national team that wants to attack, a national team that plays this brand of football, it has this identity, let that feed down into the leagues, because you can't let John Buck dictate the way the national team plays, because it's not going to help anything at this point in time. So yeah, we really, if the attacking football is the way the national team wants to go, I think it can only be of benefit to the league. And I hope whoever steps into Bento's role doesn't ignore the work he's put in there to get Korea moving forward, get them passing nicely, and for better or for worse, stop the big passes up to Kim Shin-wook. How we miss him! How we miss him dearly.
How dare you?
How dare I, indeed.
There's one question in the mailbag before we take a break, or do you want to do it after the break?
I'll let you do it now if you like.
Oh, all right. This came in a little while ago on Facebook. It's from Joe Needham asking, excluding the obvious picks like Kim Min Jae and Son Heung-min, who we've already talked about, which players do you see as being the future mainstays in the Korea squad?
Ooh, it's a difficult one. I mean, is Lee Kang-in obvious now? It feels obvious now. Yeah, he definitely. I see him being a permanent fixture. I think Hwang Hee-chan. I mean, he was pretty much a mainstay anyway, but I can only see him cementing his position further. As I mentioned for reasons earlier, I don't know if Cho Kyu-sung is going to be a mainstay for long, because I think Korea has potential of the strikers there in the wings, but he's the striker for now, as far as I'm concerned. I can't see why Hwang Hee-jo should be given the first choice again for a while. Michael, anybody you see being a mainstay in the future?
I think Hwang Hee-bom had an excellent tournament, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, he's on 40-odd caps now
put,
for the
put
side.
Another, put another man on in the Hwang Hee-bom jar. We've mentioned him in every World Cup pod, but yeah, you're right, Michael.
The son of Daejeon, as much as it hates me to say it. Hwang Hee-bom, really, to be honest, now he's over 40 caps now for the national team, and he displayed on the world stage what he can actually do for the team. With the career he's had start, I remember watching him play against Seoul Leland for Daejeon Citizens at the time, and now he is gallivanting all over Europe. So for me, it's him really. I think he's definitely going to be in the next tournament for sure.
Indeed. Ryan, anyone you'd like to?
Hwang Hee-bom was the name that I was thinking of there. I'll go out on a limb here, and it's not just because he scored a banger last night. I really enjoyed watching Paek Sung-ho play in K-League, and I think that that's a position that is going to be really important for the team moving forward. I don't know if I want him to be my guy in this segment, but I mean, Lee Kang-in is the future, and I think he's the one that the team needs to be built around, even with Son being there. And he should be there. He's only going to be 34. It's not that old, everybody. But I mean, in World Cup years, of course it is. And so I think that 2026 tournament, this should be Lee Kang-in's team at that point, and Son is there as the veteran to help guide him. So to me, you fit whatever system you need around him and players of his ilk, because again, players that can read the game, that can move quick, get the ball going forward and attack on their own. Yes, please give me more of those.
All right. Well, thank you again for the question, Joe. We're going to have to take a quick break there. And then after the break, we'll have the Footballogy match of the round. So don't go anywhere.
Footballogy is a football app like no other. With the handiest tool for football fans on your phone, you can locate any match nearby no matter where on the planet you are or plan to be. Keep track of all your visited games, collect all kinds of stats, and get badges for achievements like special games and milestone events. The Footballogy app covers more than 80,000 grounds and 1,200 leagues worldwide, including K-League 1 and 2, as well as K3 and K4 and the WK League. Download Footballogy for free today on iPhone or Android. Connect with your friends, and your football life will never be the same again.
Welcome back to the K-League United podcast. Matthew Binns here, and I'm joined by Ryan Walters and Michael Redmond. And, gentlemen, it's time for the Footballogy match of the round. Yes, each podcast we've been choosing the matches to watch at the stadiums to watch for you to check in on the Footballogy app. Unfortunately, there's a slight issue with this week as Korea are no longer in the competition. And so we are left with the other teams in the World Cup. And I have chosen, and I don't know why, I can't possibly figure out why I've chosen this, but England versus France. Because why not?
What tournament are they playing in? What is this?
The World Cup. Yeah, you know, I think. Well, I don't know. America, they're not usually in it for this long, are they? The USA, to be fair. So.
Hey, 2002 wasn't that long.
No. Well, 20 years if you're in the right country for being reminded when the 2002 World Cup was. Oh no, you're not, are you? Actually, you're in Ho Chi Minh. All right, but yes, let's get back to the Footballogy match of the round, which is England versus France is being held at the Al Bayt Stadium on Saturday at 60,000 capacity stadium. It's the only stadium not near or in Doha. You have to go through a bit of stretch of desert to get there, actually. Its design is inspired by the Bayt al-Shara tents used by Bedouin nomads, and it makes for quite the spectacle, it would seem, based on the photos. It's based in Al Khor, where the population is only at 200,000, according to the 2015 census. So if you're expecting over 25% of the locals to be there, I'm sure, I wonder if you're wondering what the legacy of this stadium is. Well, they are actually going to be reducing it after the World Cup and repurposing it. But yes, Michael, being beyond the desert a little bit, you'd expect it to be quite hot, wouldn't you?
You would, but I'm going to shock you. Can I shock you?
Please.
It's not. Guys, as a seasonal veteran weatherman, I'm going to have to break this news to you. Saturday is going to be 22 degrees and 56% chance of rain.
It's freezing cold.
That is Manchester weather if I've ever heard something in all my life. Now, with the weather, it's 56% chance of rain. Even by kickoff, the rain will be gone, hopefully, touch wood. With the weather clearing up a few hours before the big game, who will be flooding the desert with tears? And who will be singing "Clearly Now the Rain Has Gone"?
Wow.
Expertly done. We've enjoyed your weather forecast throughout this World Cup.
Podcast of the World Cup, isn't it?
Indeed it is. And it's probably going to be our penultimate podcast for the season. We are going to be having one more to wrap up the 2022 season and season 5 of the K-League United podcast. But we are going to wrap up our international team coverage with this one. But before we do, Ryan, where can people find us if they want to get in touch?
Well, we're all over the internets. You can find us mainly at kleagueunited.com. I don't know why I'm talking like this. Also, we're on social media at K-League United on all of the social medias. We're not on TikTok yet, but I feel like Michael's got some dance moves in him or some POV videos, which, by the way, having scrolled through TikTok recently, I don't think people understand that point of view is what that means. And you can't just put POV in front of anything that you think is funny. That's not how it works, internet.
It's how the kids talk these days, Ryan. We're past it.
And that's where you can find us. We're also, if you want to get more involved and you want to get some of the juicy, yes, if you want to send us a fax, you can do so on our Patreon, patreon.com/K-League United, where there are all sorts of juicy transfer rumors, which are ramping up, obviously, with the World Cup in full swing, and all sorts of other goodies going on over there, which, yeah, I know all about because I'm definitely not in Vietnam, on my way to Cambodia, Thailand, and then Indonesia again before the year ends.
Yeah, indeed. But yeah, lots of things going up over there still. Lots of things on KLeague.com, lots of things on KLeagueUnited.com. We're also in association with Classic Football Shirts. So if you click the link in the description of this podcast and then type in KLU10 at the checkout to get yourself a little bit of discount, you can purchase some classic World Cup shirts, and I'll learn how to say that. It is late, everyone. It's the end of the season.
That's watershed almost. That what word came out there.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, go get yourself a classic football shirt. I'm sure you'd like to get a retro American shirt after the monstrosity they released this year.
Good Lord, we don't have time for it. We don't have time.
We don't. We are running short on time. We are at the hour and 6 minute mark. So we are going to leave everyone there. But thank you again for tuning into these World Cup podcasts. Thank you again for listening. As always, we'll be back with the final episode in a week or two. So please keep listening to the airways for that. But until then, from Ryan Walters, from Michael Redmond, and myself, Matthew Binns, thanks so much for listening. Goodbye.
공격 공격기 김신